Hi everyone, welcome to English with Aga. In this video, we're talking about phrases and expressions for meetings in English. So I know that many of you already use English at work. Going into a meeting or leading a meeting in English can be nerve-wracking. You may feel nervous about it, but if you know the right phrases, things become a lot easier. So today we're going to talk about 62 different phrases for leading or participating in meetings in English. I have divided them up into categories. So you can watch this video, but you can also download a PDF document with all the phrases that we discuss in this video. So you can keep it and you can study the phrases afterwards. Okay. We're going to start with phrases for opening a meeting. So you can say, let's get started, shall we? Let's get started. It means to begin. Let's begin this meeting. Let's start the meeting. You can add shall we with a question mark at the end to make it sound like a polite suggestion. So rather than just saying, let's get started, you can say, let's get started, shall we? I suggest that we start. You can thank people for coming to the meeting by saying, thank you for coming. Or if it's an online meeting, you can say, thank you for joining. Can we begin by reviewing the agenda? So here you've got several different useful phrases. The first one is, can we begin by doing something? So it's a useful question for asking if people are happy to start with a specific thing, and reviewing the agenda. So the agenda is the list of things or questions or problems that you want to discuss in the meeting, and to review the agenda means to go through the different points one by one, just to check what's on it, just so that people know what to expect in the meeting. Can we start by reviewing the agenda? Let's kick things off. That's another one to say, let's get started. Let's start the meeting now. So to kick off means to start. It's a very useful phrasal verb and it's often used in the workplace. Another way to say this is, I'd like to kick things off by. So I'd like to start the meeting by discussing a specific point. I'd like to kick things off by talking about our main project. The next set of phrases is to do with introductions. So sometimes you might be in a meeting with people that you don't necessarily know, either from another team or another organization. So it's nice to start by introducing yourself to everyone so that people know what you do and you know what they do. So here are some useful phrases. Can we go around and introduce ourselves? So this is an invitation for everyone to say their name and what they do. Can we go around and introduce ourselves? Let's start with a quick round of introductions. So a round of introductions is when each person introduces themselves one by one. So I go first, then you, then the next person and the next person. Then you can also introduce yourself by saying, for those of you who don't know me, my name is. So this is to introduce yourself to anyone who you have never met before. For those of you who don't know me, my name is. And a useful question to ask somebody to introduce themselves is, could you tell us a little bit about yourself? The next group of phrases is to do with reviewing the agenda. So like we said, the agenda is the list of topics that you're going to discuss. And here are some useful phrases for reviewing the agenda. Here's what we'll be covering today. So to cover something is almost the same as to discuss something, to talk about something, to present something. Here's what we'll be covering today. Let's take a moment to look over the agenda. So to look over the agenda is the same thing as to review it. So to check what different questions or topics we will be discussing. Does everyone have a copy of the agenda? So when you're leading the meeting, you want everyone to be able to see the agenda. And this is particularly useful if you have an online meeting. You want to make sure that people know what to expect. Is there anything missing from the agenda? So it's a question you can ask at the end once you have reviewed everything on the agenda to see if there's any topics or questions that are not on it but should be. Is there anything missing from the agenda? Are there any additional items to discuss? So this is another way of asking if anything is missing. Are there any additional items to discuss? So agenda items are the things, topics or questions or problems that you discuss in a meeting. Is there anything else you'd like to discuss? Is there anything else you'd like to talk about? So this is another way of asking, is there anything else in addition to the agenda? Now the next set of phrases is to do with leading a discussion. Let's dive into the first point. It's a useful phrase to encourage people to start talking about the first point on the agenda. Let's dive into it. So let's focus on it and start discussing it. Could you elaborate on that? So this is a question you can ask when you want to ask somebody to give you some more information about something. Could you elaborate on that? What are your thoughts on this? What do you think about it? Does anyone have any questions or comments? This is a useful thing to say after presenting something, or if you're leading the meeting after somebody else has presented. You want to invite people to ask questions or comment on it. Does anyone have any questions or comments? How does everyone feel about this approach? So this is another way of asking, what do you think? How do you feel about this approach? Now the next group of phrases is about encouraging people to participate in the discussion or in the meeting. I'd like to hear your thoughts on this. So you can say that to a specific person or the group when you want to know what they think. I'd like to hear your thoughts on this. I want to know your opinions. I want to know what you think. Please feel free to jump in. This is a super useful and common phrase that you can say if you want to tell people that it's okay for them to interrupt you. So for example, if you're delivering a presentation, you are happy for people to ask questions in the middle of it. They don't have to wait until the end. So feel free to jump in. Feel free to interrupt me, to ask questions or add your opinion. I would appreciate your input. I would like you to tell me your thoughts. Let's have an open discussion. So this is just to encourage people to say what they really think. An open discussion is where everyone is honest about what they think and how they feel, and nobody has to pretend. Let's open the floor for discussion. So this is usually something that happens after a presentation of some sort, when you want to invite people to discuss, to express their ideas, to challenge each other about something. Let's open the floor for discussion. Let's start a discussion. Does anyone disagree? So this is to ask if there's anyone who doesn't like your idea. Does anyone disagree? Sometimes you might want to check if people understood what you said. So here are some phrases you can use for that. Does that make sense? Just to clarify the main points. So this is something you can say if you want to give an explanation or a clearer description of something you have just said. Are there any other questions? Another question you can ask to see if everything is clear, if everybody understood what you said. Now, sometimes some issues or problems might come up during a meeting, and here are some phrases for addressing those issues. Let's talk about some of the challenges we're facing. So this means the problems that we are experiencing. How can we resolve this issue? How can we solve this problem? What obstacles are we encountering? Can we find a compromise? Let's brainstorm some solutions. To brainstorm solutions is to ask people if they have any ideas for how a problem can be fixed. Now, when you're leading a meeting, you need to manage time. So you need to make sure that the meeting doesn't take longer than planned. So here are some phrases you can use to do that. Let's keep this brief. This is something you can say at the start to make sure that everyone understands we should not talk too much. We want to keep things brief. We're running short on time. That means we haven't got much time left to discuss everything on the agenda. So it's a way to say, let's hurry up. We really need to discuss the next point. Shall we take this offline? This is quite a common phrase. I don't personally like it, but I know that people use it all the time. Let's take this offline. It's a way to say, let's not talk about it in this meeting. Let's talk about it separately afterwards. Let's move on to the next item. So that's to say, okay, we've finished talking about this topic. Now we need to move on to the next one. We need to wrap up soon. To wrap up is a useful phrasal verb to mean we need to finish the discussion or finish the meeting quickly. Now, the next group of phrases is about summarizing and clarifying. To summarize, we've decided to do something. So this is just to summarize what has been said or what decisions have been made during the meeting. Let me clarify that point. It's a useful phrase to say, I want to paraphrase it. I want to say it in a different way to make it easier to understand. Let me clarify that. Here's a quick recap. So a recap is just a very quick summary of everything that has been discussed. So we're all in agreement. It's a phrase you can say we all agree on what to do next or what we have decided. Let's ensure everyone is on the same page. To be on the same page is a very common work phrase, which means to have the same opinion or understanding about something as other people. So we're on the same page about this. We all agree that these are the facts and these are the actions we want to take. You can also say it seems that we're all on the same page. I think we've covered everything on the agenda. So that's something you can say at the end of the meeting to say there's nothing else to discuss. We have discussed all the items on the agenda. The next group of phrases is about taking action. So often in meetings, you discuss the agenda, you have a discussion about the problems or issues, and then you come up with actions that need to be taken by different people after the meeting. So here are some phrases for that. Could you please take the lead on this task? So this is a question you can ask when you want somebody to do something. To take the lead on something means you are the main person who will be working on this. I'd be happy to look further into this. So this is something you can say if you want to volunteer to do something. To look further into something means to explore it, to understand it better, and maybe do a little bit more work on it. Will you follow up on next steps? So to follow up means to take action as a result of the meeting. Who would like to take on task A? So this is a question to ask the group. Who would like to be responsible for task A? So to take on a task means to become responsible for it. Can we set a deadline for these actions? Let's make sure we're clear on who is responsible for each action. So this is a phrase you can use to make sure that each action has an owner. An owner is the person who is responsible for doing the action. We'll need to keep the momentum going on this project. This is a very useful phrase, to keep the momentum going. It means that the project or the question is very fresh. You have just discussed it. There is a lot of progress and action happening. So to keep the momentum going means to keep working on it or keep talking about it so that we don't forget it and so that it gets done. Now, for closing the meeting, here are the phrases you can use. Let's review the actions. So that's to go through the actions one by one so that we know exactly what they are. Any final thoughts before we close? To close means to end the meeting. Any final thoughts? It's a simple phrase you can use to ask people if they have anything else they want to add. Thank you for your contributions. That means thank you for saying what you think, giving me your opinions or giving me your comments or questions. I'll follow up with an email summary. That means after the meeting, I will send you an email with a summary. It just means it will happen immediately after the meeting. Let's schedule our next meeting. Let's put it in the calendar. And then some brief phrases for ending on a positive note. Great job, everyone. Thanks for a productive meeting. I appreciate your hard work. Looking forward to our next session. Remember, you can download all of these phrases from the link in the video description. Don't forget to subscribe to my channel and like this video. And I'll see you next time. Bye.